Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today is date February the 8th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that even though we are a news podcast, we do try to watch our language. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So I would be remiss, and I say this with all sincerity, that I would be remiss if we didn't talk about what happened last night. For all those that don't know, not because of LeBron James passing Wilt Chamberlain as the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, kudos to him, but I'm not talking about that. Something else happened that happened last night. And again, if you've been under a rock, the presidential State of the Union address was done, and Biden, President Biden didn't show up. Dark Brandon did.
Divided and a divided country, celebrating the resilience of the American spirit and effectively kicking off his potential 2024 re-election, laying the groundwork for the second half of his current term in office. Here's ABC's Jay O'Brien with more.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States. With Washington wondering if President Biden will seek a second term, the president delivering his second State of the Union.
Because the soul of this nation is strong, because the backbone of this nation is strong, because the people of this nation are strong, the State of the Union is strong.
Speaking to a Congress unlike any he's seen as commander-in-chief, Republicans now in control of the House. The president sending them a message.
To my Republican friends, if we could work together the last Congress, there's no reason we can't work together and find consensus on important things in this Congress as well.
Biden listing his bipartisan accomplishments.
Democrats and Republicans came together to defend a stronger and safer Europe. It came together to pass once in a generation infrastructure law, building bridges connecting our nation and our people. We came together to pass the most significant law ever, helping victims exposed to toxic burn pits.
But Republicans continue to hammer Biden on soaring inflation, the president touting the lowest unemployment in more than half a century.
2 years ago, the economy was reeling. I stand here tonight after we've created, with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs, more jobs created in 2 years than any president's created in 4 years.
But with a major fight looming in Congress over the debt ceiling and how to pay down the soaring national debt, some heated moments on the House floor.
All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy of the proposal.
You could hear some House Republicans calling the president a liar. The family of Tyree Nichols, guests of the First Lady, looking on from the House balcony. The president pointing to them and renewing his calls for police reform legislation.
What happened to Tyree in Memphis happens too often. We have to do better. Give law enforcement the real training they need. Hold them to higher standards. Help them succeed in keeping us safe.
And after the national stir caused by a Chinese spy balloon, President Biden's remarks on China taking on new urgency.
Make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did.
With the anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine just days away, Biden promising more assistance to the Ukrainian people.
We're going to stand with you. as long as it takes. Our nation is working for more freedom, more dignity, more peace.
And in this unprecedented era of political division, the president ended by reminding Americans of what unites us.
We have to see each other not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. We're good people. The only nation in the world built on an idea.
Given some of the tension in that chamber tonight, one of the questions confronting President Biden is something he's faced for weeks now, which is, are there enough Republicans left who are willing to work with the president, willing to work across the aisle on some of those big issues still confronting the nation, including the full faith and credit of the United States with that looming fight over the debt ceiling? Lindsay?
Okay, so let's just start right there for a second. Now, as far as speeches go, I'll be honest. I'll give Biden's State of the Union. It'd be a C minus. Now, I'm gonna tell you why it's gonna be a C minus. Case in point, guys. Look, I don't know for reasons beyond my comprehension. I just gotta say this. Why is it that we can't be honest about the State of the Union address? I don't mean to go into this rant, but there's the only way I can do it, so let's just go into it. I don't see why in the world that whenever we say State of the Union, every president, from Republicans to Democrats, always say the same thing. The State of the Union is strong. It's not. It is, especially with our current U.S. standards right now, State of the Union is not strong. It is literally a house of cards on a firecracker under a crumbling infrastructure. All it's going to take is one thing for the whole thing to come down. But I get what Biden's trying to do. He's trying to, be bipartisan, even though bipartisanship doesn't work because you have one side that does not want to work with the other. They have been adamant about this. Yes, I am talking about conservatives. I am talking about the newly minted 118 Congress, in which the House of Representatives is currently holding by a slim majority by Republicans. I get what Biden was trying to do. But again, that was Biden. Dark Brandon came out to play. Dark Brandon came out with shade. And Dark Brandon I can live with because he did the one thing that really doesn't get done in State Union's address. I mean, it's been done a few times, but not to this extent of shade. Almost borderline petty, if you will, that he called out the Republicans on their shit. He called them out on it. And it's amazing as you heard the boos and whatnot. Especially, in my personal opinion, especially by one woman who looks like she should be the villain on Gotham right now, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you see what she has on? I mean, is it just me, or is she dressed up like she's supposed to be an extra for the Source Awards? That's all I'm saying. But yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the ones out there, actually could be heard calling Biden a liar. But what did Biden actually lie about? Simple fact of the matter that he said, yes, Republicans want to sunset Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Because why? Those are three cash areas that Republicans want to get their hands on. Because guys got to remember, during President Obama's run, they wanted to do so bad to bankrupt the U.S. Postal Service system because they wanted to privatize it. They did their hardest. They took funding. They cut budget. They made the U.S. Postal Service cut their budget 4 times until finally relief came to them. But keep in mind, that's what Republicans want. They want to make something run so bad that because it gets in dire straits, they can privatize it and then, make money off of it. Don't believe me? Tennessee's current public education system was a shining example of that. But I digress. But that's the only thing Biden went after. Biden did talk about the economy, which to some extent he's right. Inflation is starting to trend down. Yes, that's true. But what he did not say is that wages are not happening for everybody, which they're not. We still have $7.25 as the minimum wage in 2023, when at this point, because of inflation and production rates and things of that nature, the minimum wage should really be closer to $25 to $30 an hour, in that range. He talked about infrastructure, which again, Keep in mind, just a week ago, he was in New York talking about extending the Amtrak system for along the Hudson River for those that want to go from New York to New Jersey. That's great. Still needs to be more because there's still plenty of bridges and roads and tunnels all across America that still need to be repaired. But I do love the fact that he sat there and said that anything that we're going to use, we're going to buy American. Cool. Because at that point, now you're creating jobs, you're creating a market. It's still creating a lot of vocational jobs for constructors, plumbers, builders, welders, things of that nature. Those jobs are going to open up. And anybody that's ever taken any of those jobs, any of those trades before, skill trades, tell you they pay mighty well. So there is opening up the avenue for that. He did talk about police reform, as he did point out that the parents of slain individual Tyre Nichols was there. Now, what it didn't show in the clip is what I wish I could find before I started this podcast was that in the State of the Union address, Biden does sit there and say that he feels for those parents because he doesn't have to have the conversation that a lot of parents have to have that talk with their kids. Now, for those of the melanated chocolate variety, we've all had our parents sit down with us and talk to us. And by the talk, I don't mean the birds and the bees. I mean the fact of how to operate around the police. If you haven't had that talk, you are extremely lucky. If you have had that talk, then you understand exactly where I'm coming from. The fact that Biden actually said that in the speech does speak, in his State Union address, does speak volumes, but also at the same time, he did talk about police reform, which again, Democrats applauded, Republicans sat down because Republicans believe that there is nothing wrong with police except giving them more of what they ask for. But that's the problem. You militarize police, you give them military style weapons, you literally give them a license to kill people. I was saying outside of fearing for their life, as long as they're not black, that does lead to eventual destruction. So police reform is needed. You guys have heard me say this plenty of times on this podcast that police reform is needed, that training needs to be longer, certifications, mental evaluations need to be done. Because if you haven't heard, especially with the stories, especially out of my home state of Tennessee, that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you usually find in police departments, which we'll get to that a little bit later. Biden also talked about Chinese weather balloon, which again, spy satellite, however you want to call it. Biden sat there and said, if China decides to act up, we gonna pull up. I'm paraphrasing, by the way, in which a lot of people will say, well, China took that as a threat. Well, your weather balloon / spy satellite was over in our airspace and eventually got shot down. Sounds like you're trying to do a lot more than just ask for a cup of sugar being a neighbor. That's all I'm saying. And Biden does, again, go into other parts of the State of the Union address, but it is amazing to me how Dark Brady came out and sat there and called him out on it. Republicans, of course, hit dogs holler. Biden said, I've got your plan sitting on my desk. If you need a refresher, I will gladly show it to you. But overall, Biden's State of the Union address, I'll give him a C because he did try. He did try to stay on that, but the whole State of the Union thing, it's just, to me, be honest. We are not strong right now. We really, truly are not. But I get what Biden was trying to do. As they kept saying, it's the fight, we know it's not done. We're just getting started. You're kind of echoing Ronald Reagan a little bit, which kind of creeps me out because Ronald Reagan was always, Ronald Reagan was the Elvis Presley to Republicans. And Ronald Reagan was simply put the catalyst to the mess that we're in right now. I mean, by the national debt that college actually had to be cost, because before Reagan, going to college was actually free because Lord knows they didn't want a bunch of smart individual multi-ethnicity groups walking around. So they had to make you pay for everything. Thanks, great communicator. May you rest in shit. But anyway, with the State of the Union address, of course, there was a response. And of all people, and I say of all people, to give the Republican response to the State of the Union, newly minted governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Now, for all those that don't remember, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was the press secretary for President Trump. And we all know with a face like hers, that's wrong. No. With a face like hers, you can already tell that she's about to feed you some bullshit. And in the response, which again, I am not going to play the entire 15 minutes. This is just the last minute of it. And I'll get into the reason why we're only playing a minute of it.
It's time for a new generation to lead. This is our moment. This is our opportunity. A new generation born in the waning decades of the last century, shaped by economic booms and stock market busts, forged by the triumph of the Cold War and the tragedy of 9/11. A generation brimming with passion and new ideas to solve age-old problems. A generation moored to our deepest values and oldest traditions, yet unafraid to challenge the present order and find a better way forward. If we seize this moment together, America can once again be the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I have been muted this entire doggone time. Oh, that was fun. So I just realized as I looked up, I'm muted. All right, so we're just gonna roll with this. So let me recap this in case, because I know I was muted. I apologize. Didn't really look up till I saw it, but yes, State address was great. Grade C minus. Biden took some shots. I'll give him that. At the same time, the response to Sarah Huckabee Sanders in the conservative response was really some shit. It really was. I mean, she didn't say anything, nothing instructive. Republicans doing what they do best. They show up to do nothing just to get paid, which I find it funny because they're the same people calling those on food stamps, government assistance, welfare queens. When in reality, conservatives are the true welfare queens. Just saying. But again, shout out to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who decided to dress up like a villain in Gotham, because that woman is really playing the villain in real life. But now that I'm muted and you guys can hear me, again, like I said before, last night during the State of the Union address, you did hear that a few individuals were a little bit disgruntled about being called out in their lives. Well, one of them, Senator Mike Lee, took that to heart. The problem is Mike Lee forgot. Social media never forgets.
Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid by the roots and getting rid of them. Take a look.
I'm here right now to tell you one thing that you probably haven't ever heard from a politician. It will be my objective to phase out Social Security, to pull it up by the roots and get rid of it. People who advise me politically always tell me that's dangerous, and I tell them, in that case, it's not worth my running. That's why I'm doing this, to get rid of that. Medicare and Medicaid are of the same sort and need to be pulled up.
Frazier is down. Frazier is down by himself.
Yeah, down goes Frazier indeed. Amazing. That's the same man, along with many others, last night who sat there and said, "We never said that." Well, Senator Mike Lee, receipts. Good luck trying to explain that one. But it goes back to what I said, what conservatives want. Conservatives love privatization. There we go. Say it all together. Privatization. Conservatives love it. They wanted to go after. Look, let me tell you why. They wanted to go after the U.S. Postal Service. They failed. They've always, since Paul Ryan, since John Boehner, they've always wanted to go after Medicare. Medicare and Social Security are literally the GOP's white whales. And right now they're trying to harpoon them sons of bitches. They're trying because there's money in that. There's money in privatization because there are plenty of companies, number one, who would love to take over Social Security. There are plenty of companies that want to take over Medicare and Medicaid. Why? Because those two, between for Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security, which we all pay into, are cash cows. But Medicare and Medicaid, those are the juicier parts of the game, because Medicare and Medicaid have been helping millions of Americans get their prescriptions, get their medications, visits, things that way. Imagine if a company was supposed to run that with government funding to pay out those things. That's billions upon billions of dollars. You don't think for 1 second that Republicans who are part of the government don't believe that a government-run program should run well unless put in one of their hands of one of their wealthy back donors. That's conservative logic. And again, Senator Mike Lee is not the only one that said that. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lorraine Boebert, and a host of other conservatives have all said, we would love to phase out Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. But if you ask them why, they'll give you a BS reason. They can't give you an actual reason because, unfortunately, for them, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are working just fine. The fact that they can't make any money off of it should speak volumes. Speaking of things that they're trying to keep preventing from doing, especially when it comes to women, because, again, I cannot figure this out for the life of me, especially if you're in Texas and Missouri. In Texas, right now there's a court case happening because Texas wants to challenge Human and Health Services guidelines, because Human and Health Services guidelines, since Roe versus Wade was overturned and that abortion was no longer, that was no longer the law of the land, and that abortion was left up to states to decide whether it was allowed or forbidden. Texas and other states have already had trigger laws put in place. So the moment the Roe versus Wade was shot down, their laws went into effect. Well, you guys do remember that Biden and company did say, well, if you cannot get an abortion, you can at least get the abortion. You can get the abortion pill by mail or from your local pharmacy, and they can do it that way. Well, Texas decided to say, hold my beer, because now they're trying to sit there and say that there is a law that is forcing pharmacies to carry the abortion pill for women, and because of that, that is being seen as unconstitutional. Which means that this case will be in the hand of a U.S. District Court judge to decide. I have been saying this for the longest time. I do not know what it truly is about abortion that just drives people to the point that they think they need to do something about it. This is the part that I want to say so bad. What is it about abortion that just bothers people, especially if you can't have kids? Because last time I checked, the biggest proponent of abortions, of abortion objectors, have been men. I've seen maybe one or two women, but it always seems to be the largest group of the ones that are against this are men. Truly. But even more so, I said it best. It is amazing how this party of pro-birth, pro-life, always seems to forget. You realize you are trampling on the choice of a woman that has decided to not put her body through child bringing. And if they choose not to do it, that's their choice. But you don't want that because you think you need to speak for the unborn baby. So when abortion pills, which again they close abortion centers in these states, have unfortunately had to close down or send their people otherwise. People have crossed state lines. People are still crossing state lines to get abortions done, to get other services done, because abortion clinics just didn't handle abortion. They actually handle many medical services for those who did not have insurance or are unable to pay for things because of the cost of medical insurance is so freaking high. So it's not just abortions that are handled at these clinics. Actual services that women need to actually survive are being done there as well. That also being said, the fact that they are now attacking pharmacies, because I don't see a lot of pharmacists going, I'm being forced against my profession to give out pharmacy because I'm a pharmacist that's been licensed to give out medicine to sell to people by the state because they need to have somebody in charge because I applied for the job. What? I don't see a pharmacist saying that. But you know who I usually see? Politicians, mostly conservatives. But it's not just in Texas that's going on with this. There's actually a conversation that one ABC News journalist had with an actual AG. And all I can say is don't be surprised by his answer.
Now we turn to the Ministry of Abortion, the U.S. mail. Earlier this month, the Justice Department gave the okay for the Postal Service to deliver drugs that could produce an abortion to states that have banned the procedure. Walgreens and CVS pharmacies have applied for certification to provide the pills through their online pharmacies. But attorneys general from 20 states with strict abortion bans have issued a stark warning that doing so would violate federal and some state laws. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey wrote the letter. He joins us now. Attorney General Bailey, thank you so much for talking with us tonight. First, can you explain to us the U.S. Justice Department has said that mailing these pills, which can have various of uses, that it does not violate federal law. Why do you and your fellow attorneys general believe that it does?
Well, it's a flawed reading of the statute, and someone somewhere is going to hold the Biden administration and these unelected federal bureaucrats accountable, because shipping abortion drugs through the mail absolutely does violate the plain text of federal statute and state law here in Missouri. And so for us, this is about protecting the rule of law. It's about protecting women and protecting children.
Why did you decide to spearhead this multi-state warning to the pharmacies?
Well, at this point, the states are the vanguard in the fight against the rise of the unelected federal administrative state, and state attorneys general are the tip of the spear in that fight. And I'm proud to be leading this effort of 20 states, 20 like-minded attorneys general who believe, like I do, that it's worth standing up and saying no and fighting back in order to protect children and protect the health of women.
Some, including abortion opponents, have expressed concern that this could result in the prosecution of women who receive the medications via the mail. Is that your intent?
Certainly not. This is not about prosecuting women. It's about protecting women's health and protecting children and holding corporations accountable if they attempt to violate state and federal law.
So what would happen? I mean, that would be the end result, right? If I happen to live in your state and I want to get this mail shipped to me and I get the mail shipped to me, then would you prosecute me?
No, the law doesn't permit prosecution of women who obtain the drugs. The law is designed and intended to prevent the shipment of the drugs in the first place. And that's what our letter is all about. It's directed towards the pharmacies who would ship the abortion drugs through the mail. Because I would also point out that these drugs are proven to be harmful. They're harmful to the health of the children first and foremost, but they're 6 times more likely to cause complications for women. And so the health and safety of the women is codified in the prohibition of the shipment of these drugs. And the prohibition is against the pharmacies from doing it. And that's why we're standing up to protect the rule of law and enforce the laws as written.
So I want to pick up on your idea there that it's harmful. In your letter to the pharmacies, you specifically say that medication abortion is higher risk than other methods. The American Medical Association and American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists consider the method to be safe and effective. In terms of the women's health and safety, what is your concern? Because you're saying that it's harmful. These doctors who specialize in abortions say that it's not.
Well, the research runs counter to what they're saying. But also, I would point out that the health and safety concerns, the health and safety of the women and children are codified in state and federal statute. The policymakers in government, our elected representatives, have spoken on this issue. And again, that's why it's about protecting the rule of law for us as much as it is about protecting the health and safety of women and children.
And I realize also you're saying you're trying to protect the women and children. If the women have decided based on their own conversations with their doctors that this is a safe alternative for them, then why not let them take the risk? I mean, risk comes with a lot of different kinds of medications, no?
Well, it's a rule of law issue for us. And I think that, again, is expressed in our letter, and 19 other state attorneys general agree with that proposition, that we've got to stand up and enforce the laws as written. The plain text of the statute means something. And so unelected federal bureaucrats in the Biden administration don't get to read out or read around the law by enacting it and promulgating a rule that undermines the will of the people as expressed through their elected representatives. So we're going to fight to enforce the rule of law.
Missouri Attorney General Andrew.
Now, I find it interesting that Missouri, of all places, not to say that Missouri doesn't have smart people, not to say that. I don't mean to say that. I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but it's amazing that the whole time you heard him talking, he did this whole thing of, we're trying to protect the safety of the women and children. Abortion pills? Dude, any pharmacist will sit there and tell you abortion pills, there's not a lot of harm to them. Although there is a risk to everything, as journalists pointed out, but the only risk to abortion is that if you don't take it within 72 hours of contraception, it may not be as effective. At the same time, constantly taking Plan B pills does loosen its effectiveness. This is also true. But at the same time, it's not harming. The women and children you keep talking about is literally unborn children that you want to fight hard for. It's like, I wish AGs, especially in this case, because that AG, it kept on saying federal and state statutes, federal and state laws are clear about sending abortion pills to the mail. Yet he kind of forgot something. He forgot that the Food and Drug Administration had already finalized a rule that broadens availability to abortion pills to many more pharmaceutical pharmacies. Also, the Biden administration, for all those don't remember, just a little bit last year, actually implemented a rule that will remove the requirement of women picking up medicine in person, which means that they could actually get it by mail. So for Mr. AG, who apparently does not read rule changes, that yes, these standing rules do apply. And at the same time, women can actually get their get their abortion pills to the mail because it's legal. And it's like, well, we don't consider it safe. What do you mean it's not considered safe? Abortion pills are safe to handle. They have multiple warnings about children, anybody but pregnant women ingesting them. And at the same time, you don't think that the personal response, it's like, it amazes me so that they think when a woman is pregnant and decides not to have the child, do they think for some odd fucking reason that this person is incapable of rational thought? Oh, well, she's gonna get abortion pills. It's gonna harm somebody if she gets it through the mail. But kudos to the journalists for asking the questions that actually make sense. For example, it's like, well, would you prosecute me if I got it through the mail? Oh, well, she gave, what I love about this, she gave the same scenario. She gave the same scenario that he just bitched about. And he sat there and said he couldn't say it because you know why? He doesn't have a leg to stand on. Just because you're the AG still means you have to read the law. And again, taking away a woman's legal right, taking away a woman's right to get access to actually access to abortion pills, that's unconstitutional. The fact that you're doing this because y'all believe that the woman should suffer is beyond brutal, is beyond cruel and unusual punishment. For some of y'all, I think it's just a sickness. It's a sickness that some of y'all got, personally. But again, it just goes to show you why we keep up with this, because there are plenty of idiots out there that believe the same way that abortion is murder, when really it's just the fact of the matter is it's not your child, it's not your choice. A woman's body is her own effing business. The choices, consequences all belong to her and to none of you. It is that freaking simple. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover the story as well because more and more news is coming about this, especially around the murder of Tyre Nichols, not just the death, the murder of this young man. That not only are officer number 6, the white officer who was put on administrative leave, has now been fired. Come to find out that city attorney for Memphis sat there and said that 7 more officers will be facing discipline for the murder of Tyre Nichols. So you now have 7 more officers that are now involved in this, which again, they didn't say how these 7 officers are involved. They still sit there and say that the investigation is ongoing. We do know that an officer at the scene of where Tyre Nichols was murdered did take pictures of it and did send it off to several people. So who those 7 people are, there also may be possibly 7 officers. It may be those 7 officers in question. We do not know. But that just goes to show you that, again, where Biden was talking about police reform, it needs to go a step farther, because that was supposedly a unit in Memphis called Scorpion Unit. Scorpion. Words are escaping me right now. The Scorpion Unit in Memphis. And for the simple fact, the matter was that they were meant to actually do law enforcement in Memphis. But again, you had 6 officers that decided to murder someone, and then you have 7 more officers who may be actually involved in this in some way. But again, I could be honest though, it's amazing how fast the wheels of justice fall when the officers are black versus when the officers are white. And yes, I will keep pointing that out, because when it's white officers, it's almost like they're given the benefit of the doubt. But when it's black officers, it's fast food straight to conviction. But the point I'm making out of this is just that police reform is needed. And I will still say this till someone tells me I'm wrong. That for the simple fact of the matter is, you train longer to be a plumber, you train longer to be an electrician, you train longer to be a hairstylist, you train longer than to work in a daycare than you do to become a law enforcement officer. I still say more training is involved, education is required, mandatory requirements must be met. You must go through a mental and physical evaluation before we find out you are fit for duty. And again, you want to root out the ones that are not fit for this job. Tighten the requirements. It's that simple. But we're going to keep up with those 7 officers and what happens with them in this tragic thing, because how many more times, I hate to say it, how many more black men are going to have to die at the hands of police before this is taken seriously? And I'm not just talking about Tim Scott and the George Floyd Police Reform Bill, because Tim Scott single-handedly killed that bill because his Common Sense Justice Act was really a bunch of BS, but he wanted that passed, not the George Floyd Police Reform Act passed, which goes to show you, as one of the only 2 black men in a conservative party full of white people, you think you would have common sense. No, he just had to make sure he did just enough to get the job and the perks that come along with it. But speaking of jobs and the perks that come along with it, for some odd reason, when you're the governor of Florida, you are also the dictator of Florida, because apparently you can do a lot. You can establish woke as your sworn enemy. You can remove African American Study AP because you think that it contains indoctrination. You also believe that you can take on possibly your biggest cash cow in Florida. I am talking about Trump 2.0. Ron DeSantis is taking on Disney. And how is he taking on Disney? by literally going at the infrastructure that runs Walt Disney World.
This state is governed of people of the state of Florida. It is not based on the demands of California corporate executives.
Crazy, isn't it? Why, oh, why does Governor DeSantis want to take on the mouse? Well, it's very simple. Because the simple fact of the matter is that, well, the mouse pretty much sat there and did not agree at the time with his bill that came out for parents' rights, parents' control Bill of Rights, also known as the Don't Say Gay bill. Again, while Disney World came out and said they opposed it, and Ron DeSantis looked at them and said, "How dare you? I will wave my wand and make you disappear." Now, again, he is going after the special district because all of us didn't know, myself included, just because I love Walt Disney World and want to take my children back there again to experience things I got to experience when I was small, but we will get them prices and stuff, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, what I did not know about Walt Disney World is that they have their own government inside of Florida, specifically the county that they're in, Reedy Creek, and everything within Reedy Creek has its own fire department, police station, really its own infrastructure inside of Florida that is basically runs Walt Disney World. Well, Governor DeSantis, as you can see, wants to remove that. Why? Because he knows that Disney does not have to answer to him because they're kind of their own country within a state, if that makes sense. And so Ron DeSantis is trying to push a bill forward to sit there and say, I want to be able to bring that district under my control. And this is why I say Governor Ron DeSantis might as well be a dictator, because how is it that this man is doing all of this stuff in Florida and no one says no? That sounds like a dictator to me. And number two, why do you want to go up against the mouse? Especially since Walt Disney World is one of your biggest cash cows in Florida besides tourism, and what's to keep them from sitting there saying, okay, we'll uproot and go somewhere else? Because that's what they could do. Walt Disney World in Florida could uproot themselves. And yes, there is Universal Studios in Florida as well, but who's not to say that Disney won't sit there, open up the pocketbook, buy them too, and move out? The thing about it, the whole story is Governor DeSantis is really a man that is overreaching in his power. And the fact that he got reelected again just tells me that Florida is really run by a bunch of conservative idiots or those who are really well paid off. That being said, we're going to follow that story as it goes along because, again, you are threatening one of your biggest cash cows in Florida, simply put, because they didn't go along with your anti-wokeness agenda. Because white people say woke one time too many for me. But also, because, pandemic is starting to come down and, of course, their emergency measures are being removed, we are starting to see people go back to movie theaters. But if you go to AMC, theaters, or, that's your only choice, kind of got some bad news for you.
At mega movie theater chain AMC. Will Reeve here to break down the announcement impacting where you sit to see your favorite blockbusters. Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Michael. I myself am a middle guy. You sit right in the center for the best view, the best sound. And if you want that in an AMC theater, you're going to have to pay extra. The chain announcing a tiered pricing system. So what you're used to at concerts and games is coming to the movie theater. The better the seat, the more you pay.
This morning, a surprising new move from mega movie chain AMC. The company announcing they'll start selling tickets at different prices based on where you sit in the theater.
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
The plan is to offer 3 tiers of seating. Preferred tier seats in the middle of the theater will be the most expensive, followed by standard, the most common choice, which the company says will remain the price of a traditional ticket. If you're in the mood for a bargain and don't mind a slight neck cramp, try value, located in the front rows. Those will be the cheapest. AMC has yet to disclose how much the tiers will cost.
I know you think I'm crazy.
While box office receipts have rebounded since the pandemic, grossing $7.4 billion last year, the numbers are still down 34% compared to 2019.
I'm not going to make the same mistake.
Leaving theater companies searching for ways to lure customers from the couch to the cinema.
Just want to manage expectations.
Now, no specifics yet on how AMC plans to enforce this new policy. The average movie ticket price is about $9.17. An adult ticket at AMC theaters, they cost at least $5 more than that on average right now. Depending on where you sit, you may have to pay even more.
So you're a middleman, and you just said
I like the front. Yeah, maybe I'm just cheap deep down.
You break your neck to look at the movie.
No, but I like not having anybody in front of me, just experiencing.
I can't get it all in. I can't see everything if I'm too close. But you know what this means? You just gotta have to walk in and tell people, "Can you get out of my seat, please?" Everybody's still gonna go there.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't want to sit behind you.
Hey, that's not.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. For the simple fact of the matter that AMC thinks this is a great idea. It's not. You know, this is exactly how you kill a movie theater chain, because once you start looking at the fact, and yes, we know COVID has done a number on a lot of businesses, movie theaters entirely, because a lot of streaming services got exclusive deals. So a lot of streaming services got exclusive deals to stream movies. As soon as they hit the theaters, that may have cost some ticket sales, may have actually cost some movies. But now, as we're starting to open up a little bit more in the world, yes, people are still going to movie theaters, especially with the MCU season starting up, and that the DC, two of the biggest movie generators, Marvel Studios and DC Studios, will be launching movies very soon. Specifically, the next one, Ant-Man, which will actually be 2 weeks from now. But that being said, I think that AMC wanting to sit there and say, well, if you want to sit in the preferred section, you may be paying $5. You want to sit in the standard section? Okay, cool. You want to sit in the slightly better section, but not the preferred section, you may have to pay a little bit more. Let me tell you something, movie theaters, and hear me plainly. I can wait. I am a movie fan. Do not get me wrong. For most Marvel and DC movies, I am usually there at the midnight showing, Coke in hand, enjoying myself, because I want to see the movie first at a time when there's very little children and it's mostly adults, and we all just want to watch it in peace. I love that setting. But you know what else I love? My money not flying out the window. For a lot of us, going to the movies can be anywhere from $50 to $100. And that's just with maybe 1 or 2 kids, popcorn, drinks, and tickets. Can you imagine going to an AMC theater now trying to get preferred seating with that type of money? Your money may double, if not a little bit over that. And I'm sorry, a movie experience these days at these prices with inflation is simply not that entertaining. For a lot of us, we may be switching to we can wait, because actually this could be the death of matinees as well. But again, this is just AMC. Other movie theater chains like Regal and other ones may have yet to make a decision on this, but this would be a great time to go to a small theater chain if you do have one in your local area, or drive-ins. Drive-ins are great as well. If you have one in your area, definitely check that out. But AMC, I'm sorry, this is definitely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, not the move you want to do. Just saying, because I think just like Netflix's password sharing that you're trying to prevent that from, yeah, that's not going to end the way you think it is. But another story I did want to get to, guys, again, following up on my backward ass state of Tennessee, specifically Laverne, because apparently the police department in Laverne is just one big ass eyes wide shut orgy. Well, the police chief has been investigated and has been let go.
Administrative leave, then fired. All of it happening in the same day in Laverne, where the police chief tonight is out of a job. This after an investigation found that Chief Chip Davis allegedly knew about sexual misconduct happening in his own department and did nothing. Let's get right to our 5 Alert anchor, Hunter Hoagland, tracking it all. What's the latest, Hunter?
Well, Rory, it is just a department gone wild. It's the latest development in a sex scandal that's now plagued LPD. Just last month, 5 officers were fired for sexual misconduct. An internal investigation found they were having sex with each other at house parties, hotels, and were even doing so on duty at the police station. Now, following the firing, city officials hired a third party to investigate claims of sexual misconduct within LPD. One of their main goals was to figure out what exactly Chief Chip Davis knew and when he knew it. Investigators came to the conclusion that he was aware of what was happening within his own department. They say not only did he not report it, he didn't even discipline any of the officers involved. Megan Hall, one of the 5 officers to be fired over this whole ordeal, has filed a complaint with the EEOC. She claims that she fostered this environment and then encouraged the behavior. As a result, Chief Davis was placed on administrative leave this morning, then fired just a few hours later. Now, 3 weeks ago, when this all came to light, Mayor Jason Cole told us he had full confidence that the department's leadership team and their ability to lead the department. He's now walking back that statement tonight, saying, "There are not words to describe the disappointment and frustration felt by myself and other city leaders. Officers are held to a higher standard, even more so their police chief." Those were his words there, and you can read that on our website, newschannel5.com. But of course, this is something we are going to stay on top of here at the Alert Desk, as the search for a new police chief is only just beginning here tonight.
Well, so above all else, the police chief in Laverne knew what was all going down and knew who was going down. If you guys don't remember the story, it came out. I mean, the story that, you can't make stuff like this up. You really cannot. But again, a story like this, where police officers were sharing another female police officer and having a lot of coitus on the clock, sometimes in the police, sometimes in the police department, sometimes in squad cars, and just doing a whole lot of swapping, I guess is the word I could use for this. But yes, and then to come to find out that, yeah, the police chief knew about all this going on in his house. Should he have been fired? Absolutely. Absolutely, he should have been fired. Because again, this goes back to what I said. It is amazing to me that I'm pretty sure that's not the only police department that doesn't happen in. But it's the first one where it's been so public that it just makes you think, if the police chief knew what was going on, you can only imagine the simple fact of the matter, what else was going on. And again, this is vital, and this just opens up another can of worms, because not only the fact that they've been caught basically messing with each other, but everything they've been attached to. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm looking at this from a case, not just because of them. I mean, they're grown adults. You don't need to be messing with each other on the job and be messy about it. Okay, cool. We've always said don't crap where you eat. We've been saying that. But what I'm saying, but on the other side of it is, what about all those cases they're involved in? Because now, say for instance, if you're one of those individuals that your case just happened to get you convicted, and one of those officers are attached to it, you don't think that they're sitting there from their jail cell, wherever they're at, and going, "Oh no, I want an appeal because that officer's integrity has been challenged. I want an appeal on my case." Who's not to say that they haven't set me up? And we don't know how many cases this affects. But I can only imagine the fallout from this is going to be that there's going to be some people who feel like they got done wrong in their case are going to try to appeal this. Why? Because of the detriment of that police department. Not only did it open up the reason why, again, don't crap where you eat, but now you may have severely cost a lot of cases that may have been solved. And again, I'm just speculating here, but I would not be surprised if it happens, because again, I've always said it best. I do not understand. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know about the lifestyle. Live your life however you want to. Cool. But when several police officers have had your wife, either you joined in, or there's a very special word for you that I cannot say on this podcast. You'll figure it out. But again, the last story, guys, before we do our feel good segment, is another thing that I've always noticed, that whenever it comes to the rice cake bleached variety, that whenever they do something, they've never been called terrorists. Even in this case, a couple who decided to go after a power station for simple fact of causing anarchy, there seems to be one word missing from this entire video that I'm going to be playing that should be said. but I'll let you be the judge.
Says white supremacists Sid Daniel and Brandon Russell were plotting to wipe out Baltimore's power grid within the coming weeks. The alleged plan was to spray 5 substations with gunfire.
The accused were not just talking, but taking steps to fulfill their threats and further their extremist goals.
According to the affidavit, Daniel telling an undercover agent it would probably permanently lay this city to waste. Russell allegedly told the FBI the goal was to create a cascading failure. Federal prosecutors say these photos show Daniel had access to firearms. In one, a woman the FBI believes to be her is dressed in tactical gear containing a swastika, holding a rifle and with a pistol. Authorities say Russell started an ethnically motivated violent extremist group that embraced neo-Nazi ideas and targeted racial minorities and critical infrastructure. The arrest comes after recent attacks on energy grids in Washington state, Oregon, and North Carolina, where last December gunshots were fired at 2 substations, leaving 45,000 customers without power amid freezing temperatures.
Unfortunately, power grids are actually wide open. The power companies have got along for a long time, not having really robust security in place because they haven't been attacked. But it is a very challenging situation.
The FBI says Daniel and Russell had been in touch since at least 2018, when they were serving time in separate prisons on felony charges. Russell for illegal possession of explosives, Daniel for armed robbery. Since her release, she was diagnosed with a terminal illness, allegedly telling an undercover FBI agent she wanted to accomplish something worthwhile before her death.
Stephanie, what charges do they face?
Lester, they're charged with conspiracy to damage an energy facility. This is one of the substations that provides power to Baltimore. That charge carries a maximum penalty of up to 20 years, Lester.
So I gotta point this out. You heard, now I say this with all sincerity. You heard white supremacists. You heard Nazi. You heard Nazi symbols with swastikas, things of that nature. That these 2 individuals wanted to go after power stations in Baltimore to basically cripple the city. Now, what the word you didn't hear, terrorist, 2 words actually, domestic terrorist, you didn't hear it. It is I went back and watched that 3 times just to make sure, because they're going to get conspiracy to destroy government property. But they just admitted their whole idea was to disrupt, cripple a city, because to inflict harm and damage upon minorities and others. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If those were black people, that's domestic. They would immediately label them as domestic terrorists. The fact that these are of the rice cake, potatoes and raisins and potato salad variety, possible destruction of property. What I have to ask this question: what is it going to take for a non-person of color to be labeled as a domestic terrorist? They are, because to me, that's domestic terrorism. To me, when you decide to go after a power station, simply put, because you want to terrorize or disrupt a city, that's terrorism. When you do it because you believe in some type of outstanding, idiotic or psychotic impressions, ergo Nazis, again, domestic terrorism. But yet, for the life of me, I will never understand, why is it so hard for them to sit there and say, yes, it is domestic terrorism. Yes, it's exactly what it is. They should be tried for it. I mean, for most prosecutors, it's an open and shut case. But I have to ask that question, like, what does it take to finally get that done? Because that is what's severely lacking. That's all I'm saying. Because when I see something like that, I'm like, oh, y'all ain't never getting out. I mean, y'all admitted it. Y'all had the time. You had the weapons, the gear to do so. Y'all ain't never getting out. Because you know why? Domestic terrorism doesn't have a release date. Either there would be death penalty if lives were lost, or lifetime in prison. And now it just feels like it's not. It just, again, make it make sense, because it doesn't make sense to me that you can do that and not be considered a terrorist. The guys at the Boston Marathon had less to go off of, and they were labeled as terrorists. They were about to do the same. They weren't going to do the same thing as the Boston Marathon massacre would have done with pressure cooker and explosives. But the damage they could have wreaked would still be on that high of a catastrophic level. Because right now, we don't need to be without power in any situation. But again, you don't want to call them terrorists. Figure that one out. But that's going to do it for our story, guys. We're going to go and move on to our feel-good segment because usually on How the Frack we got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make you use your faith in humanity. But hey, it is Wednesday. Tomorrow's Friday, which is Thursday. And we will leave you guys out with some good vibes. And I love to see, and I'd love to see this. When you see the impact that men have, especially black men have, on children. And these 4 teachers in a school, not only are black men, but 4 teachers who are black men have taken it upon themselves to really be more involved with their students. And again, you love to see it.
Today's for our rare sight in the nation's public schools, where only a small fraction of educators are black men.
I teach 9th grade English, freshman Algebra 1, African American history, environmental science.
They teach the core freshman subjects. How did it happen? Working with administrators, they created a team at Martin Luther King High that doesn't exist in any other Philadelphia public school.
I'm called to do this.
Eric Butler shares that calling with Denzel Fleming and 2 childhood friends, Marcellus Chisholm and Michael Fleming.
Take out your activity worksheet or goal.
Their common goal, to provide an image that's more than academic in a school that's predominantly black male students.
A lot of our students don't have a male physical present figure in their life. And I know that in our 9th grade academy, they have close proximity to not just 1, not 2, not 3, but 4.
Students call it a privilege.
Kind of like having a group of dads.
Do you see a change in your students?
Oh, absolutely. I have kids who were not showing up at school, coming to school regularly now.
Didn't happen overnight, so it's like an everyday process.
Studies show having 1 black teacher could decrease a black child's chance of dropping out.
It does motivate me to see another man like me teaching a class. It shows that I can actually do something in life.
A lesson that resonates deeply here at MLK High School.
Many of our students forgot to dream. And coming together, we're reminding them that it's okay to dream again.
Good job. Excellent.
Rahima Ellis, NBC News.
Again, you love to see it. You love to see it just because of the fact of the matter is, like you said, when it comes to men, when it comes to that black role model, and yes, you've seen it, especially if you've been a coach, you've been a teacher, or you've been a mentor. It is to have that figure. It's to have that person that you can guide on, that you can lean on, that you can confide in, that they can help you become the person that you need to be. And again, when there is a black teacher in a black child's life, they are more than likely better. They have a better chance of succeeding. And again, as one friend of mine used to say a lot, and he still says it, and I cannot take it away from him because he says it. Representation matters. When you see somebody in a position that you don't normally see, that does inspire a child to do the exact same thing or to blaze a trail of their own. If you can reach one, you can teach one. And if you get one, then that can keep on going. And that is the true lesson of all that. But shout out to those 4 men, really doing the work and making sure the next generation can dream again, because you should. But that being said, guys, that's going to do it for our podcast. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Before I do get out of here, I do got some shameless plugging as usual. Shout out to my buddy Vaughn at Big VZA. You can find him, Big VZA, on all socials and on TikToks and on his YouTube page for his beats. If you're interested in his beats, go ahead and let him know, but definitely check him out because he usually has some fun stuff, some funny stuff, sometimes questionable, but hey, I love the guy. Check him out, Big VZA on all socials. As for me, guys, as you can see at the bottom, I am BlackFox447 on all socials. I am on TikTok. I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram, even Snapchat if you're not weird about it. I usually post reviews, everything that I watch, that I play, that I read, even gym stuff because I do a couple push-ups. At the same time, guys, I will say this repeatedly. there is no competition, guys. I am rooting for you. I am rooting for each and every one of you. If you can be as successful as you want. You can be as driven as you want. You can be as purposeful as you want. The only thing stopping you is you. But I will root for you because why? You have no competition but yourself, which tells you off the bat that if you win, I just love to see people win. I love to see people win because that inspires me, and I hope that inspires you as well. The link at the bottom, guys, let me make this a little bit bigger so that way you guys can do it. If you copy and post that link into your page, we'll take you into your browser. We'll take you to my link page. That's YouTube, Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack got here, Get Bit, and of course, Off Limits podcast. Definitely like, share, and subscribe. And again, stay informed. That's the whole point of this podcast. Be informed about the world around you, not just the federal, but the local as well. Because the more informed you are, the more you're well aware, the more you can be a change factor. So definitely do that. Also, as the pandemic is not being as vocal as it once was, we still need to be careful. So I know for some areas there's going to be a mask requirement. If you are traveling, please wear a mask. Reason being because we still have to deal with corona. We still have to deal with the multivariants. We still have to deal with HSV, RSV that are still going around because, again, it is a high time for people to get sick. And especially if you've been around kids, walking petri dishes. So again, protect yourself by wearing a mask. If you are sick, please stay home so we can actually control the spread, get these infection numbers down, and help out our nurse brethren and sisters in there because they have definitely been at this for way too long and deserve flowers. But with that being said, guys, last thing to say about how the Frack we got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first black 4-star military general. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at your paycheck? Why are we still electing the same, different politicians, but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Peace.